Every morning, your brain offers you a choice to drift through the day on autopilot or to awaken with purpose and readiness. The mind, like a muscle, responds to consistent training. It can either be reactive, fragile, and easily swayed, or it can be resilient, clear, and focused. Brain training is not about doing complex exercises or memorizing facts. It is about cultivating habits that prepare your mind to respond skillfully to every situation. The small, intentional practices you perform each morning ripple throughout your day, transforming stress into calm, distraction into clarity, and chaos into choice. Today, I will share 5 essential key points, 5 ways to train your brain every morning, so that it supports you no matter what comes your way. Mindful awareness. Observe before you react. The first and most essential step in training your brain is cultivating mindful awareness. Awareness is the ability to observe your thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations without being swept away by them. Most people wake up in the morning and immediately dive into the day, carried by notifications, expectations, and unconscious habits. Their minds are like rivers flowing endlessly without pause, and they react automatically to whatever comes their way. Mindful awareness teaches you to step onto the riverbank and watch the current, instead of being carried away. This simple yet profound practice trains your brain to pause, creating a space between stimulus and response, between emotion and action. In this space, the mind begins to realize it is not simply a passenger, but a navigator capable of choice. Through consistent practice, awareness helps you recognize patterns that were previously invisible. You start noticing the repetitive thoughts that pull you into worry, fear, or frustration. You see how quickly your mind jumps to conclusions, judges events, or anticipates failure. Awareness does not judge these tendencies. It simply observes them. By bringing attention to these patterns, first thing in the morning, you train your brain to respond to life rather than react automatically. The nervous system becomes calmer and decision-making becomes clearer. Awareness is the mental warm-up that prepares your brain to handle challenges with stability rather than chaos. Mindful awareness also transforms the way you experience your emotions. When you wake up and notice how your body feels, tension in your shoulders, restlessness in your chest, heaviness in your mind, you give yourself permission to acknowledge these sensations without rushing to fix them. This acknowledgement alone reduces their intensity. Your brain begins to understand that it is safe to feel and that feelings do not need to control your actions. The morning becomes a laboratory where you observe, without judgment, the dynamics of your mind. Each observation strengthens the pathways for calm, clarity, and emotional intelligence, creating a foundation for the rest of the day. Another important aspect of awareness is noticing the first thought you speak to yourself each morning. Is it one of stress, doubt, or negativity? Or is it gentle, intentional, and centered? This first thought sets the tone for the rest of your day. By observing and, if necessary, redirecting it, you create a new neural pattern that supports resilience. Over time, this practice rewires the brain to default to observation rather than reaction. Your mind learns to hold space for experience without immediately attaching judgment, which is essential in maintaining emotional balance. The small act of noticing your inner voice in the morning becomes a lifelong skill, one that prepares you for every situation, no matter how challenging. Ultimately, mindful awareness is not just a technique, it is a way of returning to yourself. It is the act of stepping out of autopilot and reclaiming your attention, your energy, and your choices. The mind is no longer a tyrant that pushes and pulls you through life. It becomes a companion that observes, informs, and guides. Awareness teaches you that the present moment is not something to escape, but something to fully inhabit. It allows you to begin the day from a place of calm strength rather than scattered reaction. And when your brain learns this practice consistently, it becomes a foundation that supports you through every challenge, every conversation, and every decision. Awareness is the doorway to mastery. The first step in returning home to the strength that has always existed within you. Positive cognitive conditioning. Speak to your mind with care. Positive cognitive conditioning is the art of consciously shaping the dialogue you have with yourself. Our brains are constantly listening, absorbing, and responding to the words we speak internally. From the moment you wake, the phrases you whisper in your mind set the tone for the day ahead. If your inner speech is dominated by doubt, worry, or criticism, your brain begins to perceive these as signals of reality. It reacts as though life itself confirms your fears. But when you intentionally choose supportive, constructive, and uplifting words, your mind learns a different language, one of resilience, clarity, and possibility. Speaking to yourself with care is not about pretending life is perfect. It is about guiding the mind to focus on solutions, strengths, and opportunities. It is a quiet but profound act of self-training, like slowly molding clay into a vessel of strength and balance. The power of positive self-talk lies in repetition and consistency. Just as the body builds strength through repeated exercise, the mind rewires itself when it repeatedly hears phrases that inspire growth and calm. Each morning, when you affirm statements like, "I am capable of handling challenges with patience," or "I approach the day with clarity and focus," your neural pathways begin to adjust. The mind starts interpreting situations through a lens of competence and calm rather than fear and limitation. Over time, this daily practice strengthens cognitive resilience, enabling your brain to navigate stress, uncertainty, and complexity with a composed presence. Positive self-talk becomes the mental architecture that supports you even in moments you might otherwise find overwhelming. Intentional self-talk also cultivates a sense of self-compassion. Far too often, the mind defaults to self-criticism, amplifying small mistakes or dwelling on imagined shortcomings. When you purposefully redirect your inner language toward understanding and encouragement, you create a safe internal environment. You tell yourself, "It's okay to learn at my own pace," or "Mistakes are part of growth." This simple act of reconditioning changes the tone of your inner dialogue from judgment to nurturing. It softens anxiety, reduces self-doubt, and allows your brain to operate from curiosity and clarity rather than defensiveness or fear. In essence, positive cognitive conditioning reshapes not only thought patterns, but emotional responses, preparing you to handle life's challenges with poise. Moreover, speaking to your mind with care aligns your thoughts with your goals and intentions. The brain constantly seeks coherence between thought, word, and action. By reinforcing positive, intentional statements each morning, you strengthen the connection between your internal beliefs and external behaviors. The mind begins to anticipate success, focus on problem solving, and notice opportunities that previously went unseen. Challenges that once triggered panic or indecision are met with confidence and adaptability. This daily practice transforms the brain into a reliable ally, capable of supporting you through complex decisions, interpersonal conflicts, and moments of pressure. It is a subtle but powerful shift, one that amplifies your effectiveness and emotional stability. Finally, positive cognitive conditioning is a practice of empowerment. It reminds you that the mind is not a passive observer, but an active participant in shaping your experience. Each word, each phrase, and each sentence you repeat internally has the capacity to rewire the brain, alter perception, and strengthen resilience. By committing to this practice every morning, you create a consistent environment of mental clarity, emotional calm, and purposeful energy. Over time, your brain no longer defaults to anxiety, doubt, or distraction. It responds with focus, confidence, and presence. Positive cognitive conditioning is not merely a tool. It is a way of reclaiming authority over your mind, returning to yourself, and preparing for any situation that life may present. Visualization. See your day before it happens. Visualization is a profound way to prepare the mind for the realities of the day ahead. The brain cannot fully distinguish between imagined experiences and real ones, which makes mental rehearsal an incredibly powerful tool. When you take a few minutes each morning to visualize your day, you are not simply daydreaming. You are training your neural pathways to respond skillfully. Picture yourself navigating challenges with calm, communicating with clarity, and acting with confidence. Each image you hold in your mind strengthens the brain's readiness, as if it has already practiced the responses you will need. Visualization primes your nervous system, reduces stress, and builds a sense of inner preparedness, so that when life presents obstacles, your mind responds with composure rather than panic. Through visualization, the brain begins to anticipate success rather than conflict. When you see yourself handling difficulties with grace, your mind begins to recognize these as possible and achievable behaviors. The imagination becomes a rehearsal space for your neural networks, and repeated practice strengthens these pathways. Just as an athlete runs through plays before the game, your brain rehearses patterns of resilience, focus, and adaptability. Over time, this repeated mental training makes responses automatic. You no longer need to think frantically. In the middle of stress, your mind has already walked the path of mastery. Visualization teaches the brain to be proactive rather than reactive, to meet challenges with clarity instead of anxiety. Visualization also aligns emotional and cognitive states. When you imagine yourself Moving through the day with patience, awareness, and confidence, your body and mind respond as if you are already living it. Heart rate stabilizes, breathing deepens, and tension dissolves. The brain learns to associate calm, presence with effective action, forming a pattern that carries into real world interactions.